Hello there, it's Mike with the Fish Tank Barn, and I'd like to welcome you back to another video. If you watched last week's video, we did a half-beak breeding project where I used some items from Joann Fabrics. While I was editing that video, it gave me the idea that there was quite a few DIY items that you could pick up from Joann Fabrics. So I decided to take a little bit of a shopping trip, spent about 50 bucks or so, and came back with all this stuff here. So let's go ahead and unpack this, and I think there's some pretty useful DIY projects that you can do with all this stuff. The first item is this polyfill. This actually just replaces the filter floss that you can buy at the fish store, and this is probably one of the easiest DIY projects you can do. One thing you do want to keep in mind when buying the polyfill is you want to make sure it's not treated with any flame retardants or any sort of chemicals. You just want the basic 100% polyfill. So one thing you can use this for here is you have this tidal filter. You can just go ahead and take your quilt batting out of here, which is what this is used for normally, and just stuff this into your filter. And this will go ahead and filter out any particulate matter in your tanks and really provide great filtration for your aquarium. And if you're running a lot of hang-on back filters, a lot of box filters, this is definitely a very inexpensive option for you and definitely a great DIY idea. So the next item here is this flower pot. This one was about $4. You can find flower pots at a lot of different places, but since I was already there, decided to pick one up. And you can use this primarily for breeding projects. So for example, if you orient it like this, this is great for spawning a lot of different cichlids. And if you were doing saltwater, a lot of clownfish will spawn in flower pots as well. So if you were trying to spawn something like an angelfish or a discus, you can go ahead and set it like this. While this isn't necessarily a DIY project, this is definitely something that's pretty useful you can find at Joann's. So the next item I want to show you are these glass beads. If you're looking to set up like an egg layer type setup and you're looking for marbles, Joann's a great place to look. I was playing around with some egg layer setups, and unfortunately I had a lot of trouble finding marbles at the store, and I actually had to order them off of Amazon. And I wish I would have gone to Joann's and found these beads instead. Depending on the variety of bead you have, I think they were about $6.99 to $8.99, and maybe there was even some that were $9.99. But I really thought these were good. And one thing that's really nice about them is they come in this mesh pouch, so if you want to wash them out, you can just leave them in the mesh pouch, wash them out, and they'll be good to go for your tank. So if you're looking to set up an egg-laying breeding setup and are having trouble finding marbles, this is definitely a great option for you. As I was poking around the glass beads, I also found these cool little river stones. They were about the same price as the glass beads, about $6.99 to $8.99, depending on the type. And you got about 4 or 5 in here, and they're definitely pretty cool little aquascaping stones. You wouldn't be able to do a whole scape with these, but they would definitely add some interesting accent pieces to any aquascape you were trying to create. So the next thing I want to talk about are these plant mats. These plant mats come in 2 sizes. The first size, this smaller size, comes in at $9.99, and the larger one comes in at $14.99. What I think these plastic plant mats really do a good job of is providing fry cover. I like to use this plant mat in a couple different ways. For live bears that are top dwellers, like half-beaks, I like to use this in a floating application to provide plenty of cover for fry that hide. Half-beaks are notorious for eating their fry, so I think floating this plant mat is a great way to protect the fry. For fish whose fry like to drop to the bottom, I really like to use this on the bottom of an aquarium to provide fry protection. To keep this from floating up, you'll have to weigh it down with some marbles, like the ones we just looked at previously, or weigh it down with some aquarium gravel. And one thing that's great about these mats is they have this grid on the back, so you can measure your aquarium and cut it to any size that you need. So I'm going to do these last 2 items together, because you're going to need both of these to do the project we're going to do next. So this first item here is a roll of acrylic yarn. I chose green. This was $4.99. And this second item here was this foam block, which was $4.99 as well. And I'm going to use this as flotation for the spawning mops we're going to make out of the yarn. So let's go ahead and make our spawning mop. This is actually pretty easy. What I have here is a board with 4 screws on it, 2 on the end and 2 in the middle. The middle 2 act as guides, so when I go to tie it off at the end, I make sure I've got all the pieces of string accounted for. So what you're going to want to do is just go ahead and tie your string at one end of the board, and then you're just going to want to start wrapping. So now that we have it wrapped, I'm going to go ahead and take another piece of yarn, probably about 10 to 12 inches or so, And I'm just going to go in between my pegs and go to one end of the board and just go ahead and tie it up. You now want to go to the bottom of the spawning mop and cut it off the bottom screw. This now gives us our completed spawning mop. Now this would work fine if you wanted to sink this in an aquarium for fish that lay eggs on the bottom. But if you want to float it, that's where this foam comes in. This is a closed cell foam, so it won't absorb water and it will definitely float. I went ahead and cut the foam into a small block, and you could use a drill for this, but I'm just going to take this pen and I'm just going to go ahead and stab a hole in this all the way through. And then to make this floating, you just want to tie your piece of foam off into the top. We now have our completed spawning mop. I decided to float this mop in my 29-gallon aquarium with a decent group of adult Melanitania praycocks. I have a couple of other rainbow fish tanks that I need to make spawning mops for as well. I hope you found some interesting project ideas from Joann Fabrics. I'm sure if you shop their competitors, they have similar items as well. While I don't shop at Joann Fabrics regularly, there are definitely some great aquarium ideas to be found there. So with that, stay safe, stay fishy, and I'll catch you on the next video.